Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. In today's tutorial, I am springing it forward with a bit of a spring design. We are talking bright colors and some beautiful hearts and a little bit of a unicorn spring vibe. So of course, all the products that I use for today's tutorial will be listed and linked down in the description box down below. So be sure to check that out for discount codes to save yourself a little bit of extra money. But let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. Alright, so to start today's tutorial, we are going to be using a 32-ounce handled plum from the Tipsy Magnolia. I have a brand new discount code for Tipsy Magnolia down in the description box. If you shop at Tipsy Magnolia, you can save with code Alicia to save yourself 10% off of your order. So we are going to prep our cup as we normally would. We're going to sand this cup with any grit sanding block will work, or sandpaper, whatever you have on hand. If you have other alternatives like the coverall from Crystalac, or if you even have final sand, that's also an option to help prep your cups for the process of epoxy tumblers. So we're going to clean that up with some 91% rubbing alcohol. Alternatively, of course, you can always use soap and water should you not have rubbing alcohol on hand. But once we get this done, I am going to take this and we are going to spray paint it. But before we do so, I love the Tipsy Magnolia tumblers for the simple fact of you can remove that bottom portion and you can do cute glitter butts. I've seen snow globe bottoms, I've seen rhinestone bottoms. They're just so much fun to work with, and that is why I enjoy these style cups. You will not find these styles anywhere else, so I definitely encourage you, if you haven't tried Tipsy Magnolia, definitely give them a shot. So next, now that our cup is completely prepped, ready to go with that flat white spray paint, we're going to set up how we are going to be sort of coloring or painting our base here. So I'm starting with a 1-inch painter's tape just around the top, and this is really going to be my guide and tape guide in order to line the smaller strips of tape. So I'm going to then use a smaller 1/2-inch size of masking tape to tape the next section. So these smaller sections is what we're going to tape off in glitter. Tape off in glitter second. So everything where I'm putting the blue tape, that's actually where we're going to do all of our rainbow ombre, and that will be what we choose to glitter first. I like to obviously glitter the largest sections first, or depending on what the design is, sometimes I will start with the darkest colors. So for this design, we are going to do just the larger stripes there. So I'm taking and reusing that same section of tape that I used around the top to be my guide around the tumbler as I work my way down. This helps ensure that the gaps stay the same space around and width all the way down the tumbler, and it also really helps to kind of line up the 1/2-inch painter's tape up against that line so that I can make sure that these do go on straight. So we're going to do a very quick sped up version here of me sort of taping down the rest of the cup. If you have questions about the taping process, definitely be sure to leave me a comment down below, and I will do my best to explain that a little further in case this part of the video is a little bit unclear. So as we are just sort of going through and taping this section, this is just kind of this, of course, the sped up version as I'm mentioning to you. You could choose to do this differently. I really have not done a striped cup in such a while, and so I knew that I wanted to do spring colors. Like I'm ready for spring. I don't know about you guys, but I am just ready for the spring. No more cold weather for me. And I haven't done a striped cup in such a long time that I was like, I cannot wait to turn this into a beautiful ombre of rainbow colors on a striped design. So now we're going to go ahead and prep our paint for our ombre. So we're going to do a painted ombre. And now I know I did already sort of paint the cup white. Could I have gone to the spray tent and just used all of the colors that I have in spray paint form and done my ombre? Sure. But I do like to show you guys alternative ways. Not everybody likes and enjoys using spray paint. So I want to make sure that I'm showing other ways to achieve ombres with acrylic paints, alcohol inks and things and such, because spray paint is not your only option, and there are so many other ways to create beautiful ombres. So the paints that I did use here is I used Tickled Pink, Creamy Coral, Sunny Yellow, Soft Apple, Sky Mist, and Light Lavender. These are all folk art matte chalk paints that I get from Hobby Lobby. You can find them online as well. And of course, I'll link them and all the colors down in the description box. So I wanted to show you quickly before we do a little bit of a sped up version of this, how I blend the two colors. So as you'll notice, I have a paintbrush designated for each color. I put the primary color on first, the color I'm working my way down here. Then I will go in with a second paintbrush and color in the next section, but I will leave a gap, a little bit of a gap in between where those two colors are meant to blend. I then will go back with typically the first color I started with and blend that section. Just kind of going back and forth with that color, a little bit of each of that color to just lighten it up a little bit so it just sort of blends into the next. Now we are going to be glittering over this. So for the most part, we don't need to be too precise, especially because we do have those half-inch pieces of tape there that really are going to take away from sort of some of those sections of ombre. So in this case, it really is okay if when you're ombreing that your ombre is not to your perfection or liking, because the tape really that is going to be removed out of those sections is really going to remove any areas that maybe you struggled with blending. I do recommend though, since we are going to be using a fine glitter, I would recommend going in with at least 2 coats of paint, because finer glitter is really going to show anything, any imperfection in your paint layer. So I definitely recommend going with a second coat of paint to ensure you have a nice smooth finish before you go into the glittering process. So now that our cup is painted, didn't take very long for that to dry, and then we're going to move on to my favorite part of any epoxy tumbler, of course, the glittering session. I'm going to be applying my glitter with epoxy, and I like to do this specifically because I get a little bit of longer working time than when I'm using Mod Podge or other adhesives. My epoxy is not going to cure on me before I am done with the glittering process, and I just have more time with the cup sort of in this wet state to be able to blend my colors to my liking. So I used about 5 mLs of epoxy. I did use just about the full 5 mLs of epoxy. And of course, I'm using Flint Stitcher Supply Shop Artist Cure. So I choose not to use Fast Cure in these sort of glitter sessions because with a Fast Cure, you get about a 20-minute working time. And I have been, because it's been so cold, warming up both part A and part B. So I really do only get the 20 minutes. So I do like to use the Artist Cure just to guarantee I have enough time to blend everything together. So now we're going to go in with our colors. We're starting first with Paris. These are all baddie glitters that I'm going to be showing you. So of course, as I do with all the other products, I will link everything down below and where you can purchase it and any discount codes that I have for you as well. Next, to blend into Paris, we're using Aphrodite. And what I'm doing is with the first color, I'm sort of blending downward, just sprinkling downward, just like you would with any other ombre. And then with the next color, I'm sprinkling backward up into that color above it, I hope that makes sense. And we're going to just do this for all of the colors here. Now, typically when I'm doing an ombre, if you guys have seen me do ombres on my channel before, I love to layer with different cuts of glitter. And you certainly could do this with this style. I chose to just use all fine glitters for this, which is not something you often see on my channel, but I wanted to show you guys that you can accomplish beautiful ombres with just single cuts of glitter as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you are going to pick up more imperfections with your finer and more translucent glitters. So you're going to want to make sure your paint layer is really sort of solid and smooth and to your liking, because any of these fine iridescent glitters like that I'm using today, those are definitely going to show any, lines or any weird sections that have been painted, etc. So after the Aphrodite, our yellow color from Baddie Glitter was Sunrise. Then we went in with the green, which was Whoville. Now we're using Bluebell as our blue color. And then the final color we're going to be using is Jewels. So all of these are sort of like those pastel, beautiful colors that you think about when you are ready for spring. And as I mentioned, I'm so ready for the springtime. So once we're finished with all of the ombre here, I am going to tap this off with just my scissors, and that's just going to make sure that I get any excess glitter, anything that's not sticking to my epoxy. I'm going to make sure that that is sort of off of the cup. I will then brush off after this is completely dry over the trash can anything else that's not stuck to the cup. However, we're going to, of course, wait for this to completely dry before I take a dry brush over this. So my favorite part too, after glittering, if I'm doing a striped cup, is definitely the tape peel. Oh, it's so much fun. It's so satisfying to watch as well. So we're going to remove the tape because, of course, we don't want any of the epoxy to cure our tape onto the cup, because then that would be a little bit of a pain and we'd potentially have to start over if we can't get that tape pried up. But we're going to set this on the turner, not spinning, but just let it sort of chill until it's cured. I did wait about 4 to 6 hours, I want to say. I did this part of the glittering session in the morning, and then I'm doing this next section in the evening. So I waited until sort of the evening, afternoon time to do the next coats. Before I did go in with the white here, I did brush off with a dry bristle brush any excess glitter from the rainbow ombre we have over the trash before going in with my next set of glue and glitter. So this time we're going to switch adhesives here, and we're going to use Mod Podge as our adhesive of choice. And that is simply because it would be difficult to, I mean, I could with a paintbrush paint in the epoxy, but if I'm going to be sort of double glittering, so glittering upon raw glitter sections or near raw glitter sections, I'll just switch to something like Mod Podge to just make it a little bit easier, less cumbersome for this glittering portion. So the glitter that we're going to use for the white sections here is this color is called DeVille from Batty Glitter, of course, and we're going to go in and backfill. Since DeVille is a very chunky glitter, we're going to backfill with Saint from Batty Glitter as well, and that's a finer glitter. It is not a pure white. It does give more of a silver reflex, and I'm okay with that. I was okay with how that looked on top of DeVille, but this is just going to fill in any of those adhesive sections that the chunkier glitter did not want to stick to. And so we're going to do that process through the rest of those white sections. And as you've noticed, I've kept my handle pretty clean this entire time because we're going to do something a little bit different with the handle here. I'm obsessed with doing handles this way, and so I don't know that I'll ever do a handle any differently. So stay tuned to seeing a lot of these sort of foil covered handles. So now to move into our handled area, we are going to let, of course, the Mod Podge and the white glittered sections dry. Once it's fully dried, I did take it again, brush off any of that excess glitter over the trash, and then do a good spray seal a couple of times to ensure that that glitter is not going anywhere. So now we're going to address our handle because we can't leave our handle bare, and I didn't want it to be the same color as the cup. I really am enjoying a good standout handle. So we're going to add some foil flake here. So I'm using some yellow foil flakes, and I did grab some new foil flakes in various colors from Amazon. I will link the ones that I have been using and obsessed with because of all of the colors that they come in with in the description box as well. But we're going to go ahead and take our tweezers here and just apply the foil flakes onto the entire handle. I did use Tack It as my method of adhesive for this. That way we get a nice tacky base to stick all of these foil pieces to. Just makes it that much easier to sort of burnish this down once it's all stuck there and really get that beautiful looking gold textured foil look to our handle. Once our handle is finished, we are ready for this cup to go on the turner. So this will go on the turner for a coat of epoxy, and I am going to show you the epoxying process when I do the second coat. When I do the first coat, I did about, I think I did 30 mLs for this cup. For the first coat, I used Fast Set. We are going to use another coat of Fast Set for our second coat as well. This just helps speed up the process. So I've mixed equal parts of my Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Fast Cure, and that's going to help us get this job done a bit quicker than using the longer formula or the Artist Cure formula, which takes longer to cure. So I'm going to mix up my equal parts, really making sure that I am mixing this thoroughly. Again, because it is colder with it being winter, I have been warming up both part A and part B. Typically, in any other time frame, because of the viscosity, I'll only warm up part A, but it's been so chilly that I've had to warm up part B too, because it kind of is not wanting to come out of my squeeze containers when I need it to. So we're going to add this coat of epoxy to our cup. I am going to epoxy all the way down the length of the cup, including the bottom. So not sort of the insert pieces, but I am going to do that bottom sort of rimmed edge to ensure we have a nice smooth coat down there as well. And of course, we'll cover that entire bottom with a coat of epoxy after we get that filled with our glitter colors. What I love about this cup particularly, well, these cups I should say from Tipsy Magnolia, the handled ones, is I love that it's a rounded handle. So if you've ever worked with handled cups, you know that the struggles that sometimes that you can certainly have when it comes to handles, either your handle ends up lumpy because the epoxy wasn't smooth, or you get pooled epoxy at where those junctions meet the actual cup. And so I love the rounded handles on the Tipsy Magnolia cups because I get far less trouble with pooled epoxy or unsmooth handles or lumpy bumpy handles than I do with some of the flat handles that other tumblers have. And so that has been a joy to be able to work with something so simple, so easy. I don't have to go in and add more coats of epoxy to the handle. It is smooth when my cup is smooth and ready to move on. So we're going to take this cup off the turner once it's cured in about 6 to 8 hours, and we're going to do a little bit of sanding, not too much. Again, I like to add more epoxy until I have minimal sanding to do, to be completely fair, because sanding is not my favorite thing to do when it comes to this process. So once we've done that, we are ready for the decal process. I went into Cricut Design Space and just used the square shape to make a rectangle. And this is sized to 11.5 inches in length. And then the height of these is 0.10. Okay, so about 1/10 of an inch here for the width of my lines in just white vinyl. And so I'm not going to make you watch the process of me doing this, but as I mentioned, when I am trying to get vinyl on straight to my cup, I like to use my cup sort of like caddy or carrier. It really just helps keep things nice and straight and smooth because I don't have to do a whole lot of work. I just have to roll that cup away from me as I hold that vinyl stripe taut, and that the rest of it does the work for me. So just a little tip and thought when you are trying to get those vinyl lines on super straight, try not to maneuver your cup too much and use something like, your cup caddy or cup holder in order to get those vinyl lines on straight. So we're going to move into final decals here. We are adding this really pretty white bleach spot from Batty Glitter that is going to be under the unicorn decal that you can find on my website. And so I just like sort of this add of white. And so it's nice to have like these cute bleach spots like this because it makes it so easy than having to go to the spray tent, spray the cup in that section, hope that it's somewhere around the shape that you want it, and then come back and clean up anything with alcohol ink. And in order to do that, I would have needed to add a coat of epoxy. So right now we're doing everything just on those 2 coats of epoxy that we originally did on the cup. We're doing all the decals at the same time. Because we're using UV DTF, we're not going to see any of the imprints of the white vinyl lines under our decal because our UV DTF are so thick that you're not going to see those indentations like you would with other vinyl. So that is why I love to use UV DTF for decals because it helps me skip a step. And if I can get a cup done quicker, I'm for it. Finally, what we're going to add is we're going to add this ombre heart sheet. So there were additional hearts at the top. This is just part of the sheet that you can get from Batty Glitter. It had purple hearts up top, but I used them for another project. But I decided to use the rest of these sort of rainbow hearts here for this design because I feel like it just pairs so well with this. So we're going to apply that just like as a wrap at the bottom, and we're kind of done with all the decal work. It's turning out so cute. I absolutely love it. It screams spring. This is definitely like the perfect cup for spring. Slap a name on the back of that in a cute font and bam, somebody has a brand new spring cup. So to seal our decals in, I'm just going to use some polyacrylic. Just kind of spread that all on the cup in a thin layer. We'll set this to dry. It takes about 20 minutes, really not too long because you only need a thin coat. It does not need to be like a thick coat of that polyacrylic, just a thin coat to put over top of that. And that's just going to make sure that the epoxy process is not going to be a pain in the butt and have any sort of fish eyes appear because of the ink from the UV DTF prints. Now we're going to work on our glitter butt here. So I love, like I mentioned in the beginning, I really love and enjoy the ability to pop out the bottom of these tumblers from Tipsy Magnolia because you can do so many fun things with this. It's a great way to just add a little additional flair to your cups, and I'm obsessed. So we are adding 2 glitters to our pots of epoxy. I'm using Fast Set again from Flint's Sister Supply Shop. I put Soft Girl Era in for the pink glitter, and then we're going back in with Jewels for the purple. So I always like to start with the outer rim first because it's easier to clean out anything that accidentally falls into the center than doing the center and having to try and pull out any of the outer edge that then pulls into the middle, if that makes sense. Ask me how I know. I've done this a time or two and have done it backwards and have really had a hard time making sure that those 2 glitters don't mix. We'll go ahead and torch this to pop any of those bubbles, and we will be able to set this aside to just cure on a flat surface. But before we do so, I'm going to take my little acrylic tags that I've had from Mizzy Doodles. I will link her website down in the description box, but it's got my business name on it, and it's just the perfect sort of marker that just shows that you're creator of your cups if you don't do something like signing the bottoms of your cups. So after that, this cup went on the turner for 2 final coats of epoxy, and the product is completely finished. I am obsessed. I feel like I say that for all of the cups that I make. Not all of them, but for quite a few of them, I definitely love how they turn out. And this is another one that is definitely up there in my top faves on the channel. So you'll definitely have to let me know what you thought of today's video. Definitely be sure to leave me any comments below on anything that you have question-wise about today's tutorial. If you haven't already though, give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye!